I never thought I'd be writing one of these posts, but after everything that's happened, I need to get this story out there. It's long, but I promise it's worth the read. Names have been changed for obvious reasons, but this is 100% true, and I have documentation for everything. Some background. I'm Jessica, 28, and I work as a software engineer in Seattle. My life hasn't been easy, but I've worked my ass off to get where I am. My parents divorced when I was 12, and my mom remarried a guy named Robert when I was 15. Robert came with baggage, his spoiled princess daughter Madison, who was 13 at the time. From day one, Madison made my life hell. She was one of those girls who looked like butter wouldn't melt in her mouth around adults, but turned into a demon the second they left the room. She'd steal my clothes, break my things, delete my homework files, and somehow always managed to make it look like my fault when our parents got involved. My mom, desperate to make her new marriage work, always took Madison's side. The worst part? Madison was actually pretty and popular, everything I wasn't in high school. I was the awkward kid with braces and thick glasses who spent lunch in the computer lab building websites for local businesses just to have somewhere to belong. She was the cheerleader dating the quarterback, throwing parties while I was grounded for things I didn't do. But here's the thing. I was smart, really smart. And while she was out partying and getting her stomach pumped junior year, I was coding, building websites, learning everything I could about technology. Madison had this way of making me feel invisible while simultaneously making my life miserable. She'd throw wage acceptance letters before I could see them, accidentally, spill coffee on my scholarship applications, and once even called MIT pretending to be me to cancel an interview. When I confronted her, she'd just smile sweetly and say things like, "You're so paranoid, Jess. Why would I care about your boring computer stuff?" But I persevered. I retook the SATs in secret, reapplied to colleges using my school counselor's address, and worked 3 part-time jobs to save money for application fees. Fast forward to college, I got a full scholarship to MIT for computer science. Madison? She barely graduated high school and ended up at the local community college studying communications, aka nothing. I thought I was finally free of her toxic influence. I was wrong. During my freshman year at MIT, I was like a kid in a candy store. I took every advanced programming class I could, joined the robotics club, participated in hackathons, and spent countless hours in the lab working on personal projects. By sophomore year, I had developed several small apps and built a solid reputation among my professors and peers. That's when I started working on StudySync. The idea came to me during finals week when I was struggling to find a study group for my algorithms class. Everyone was either too advanced or not advanced enough, and our schedules never aligned. I thought, what if there was an app that could match students not just by subject, but by learning style, availability, academic level, and even personality compatibility? I spent the entire summer between sophomore and junior year building the first version. I taught myself machine learning, studied behavioral psychology, and interviewed hundreds of students about their study habits. The app used a sophisticated algorithm that analyzed everything from how users preferred to receive information, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, to their optimal study session length based on their attention span patterns. The technical challenges were immense. I had to create a recommendation engine that could process multiple variables simultaneously, build a user interface that was intuitive enough for stressed college students, and develop a messaging system that facilitated productive study sessions rather than just socializing. I was careful about my intellectual property. I had everything documented, copyrighted, trademarked. I kept detailed development logs, saved every iteration of code, and even had my computer science professor, Dr. Williams, sign off on my progress reports as a witness to my work. I'd learned not to trust anyone after years of Madison's betrayals, or so I thought. The app started gaining traction during my junior year. First, it was just my dorm, then my entire residence hall, then it spread across MIT's campus like wildfire. Students were forming more effective study groups, grades were improving, and the stress around exam time was noticeably reduced. Other universities started reaching out, asking if StudySync could be implemented on their campuses. By the end of junior year, I had over 10,000 active users across 15 universities. Tech blogs were writing about StudySync as a revolutionary approach to collaborative learning. VCs were sliding into my DMs asking for pitch meetings. I was featured in MIT's newsletter as a student innovator to watch. During winter break junior year, I made the mistake of visiting home. I was excited to share my success with my family, naive enough to think they might finally be proud of me. I brought my laptop with all my work, including the source code and business plans for StudySync. I even printed out some of the press coverage to show my mom and Robert. Madison seemed different that visit. She was being unusually nice to me, asking about college, my projects, even complimenting my glow-up. I'd gotten contacts, learned how to do makeup, and finally figured out how to dress myself. She wanted to hear all about my app, how it worked, who was using it, She even asked me to show her the code, claiming she was thinking about taking a programming class at community college. I should have known she was up to something, but I was so desperate for family approval and acceptance that I fell for it completely. I spent hours explaining the technical details, showing her my development process, even walking her through my business plan and financial projections. The night before I was supposed to return to MIT, my laptop was stolen from my room. Madison claimed she heard someone break in through the window around 3 a.m, but nothing else was missing. Not my jewelry, not my cash, not even my expensive camera, just my laptop with years of work on it. I was devastated but not defeated. I had backups on my university server, cloud storage, and external drives. I reported the theft to police, filed an insurance claim, got a new laptop, and continued working on StudySync. If anything, the setback motivated me to work harder. By the time I graduated, StudySync had over 100,000 users across 50 universities. I had secured Series A funding of $2 million and was preparing to launch nationwide. Major universities were signing licensing deals. I was featured on the cover of TechCrunch as one of 25 under 25 entrepreneurs changing education. I moved to Seattle, hired a small team, and was living my dream. StudySync was growing exponentially. I had a beautiful apartment overlooking Elliott Bay, and I was finally building the life I'd always wanted. Then I got a call that changed everything. Jessica? This is David Kim from TechCrunch. We're doing a piece on promising young entrepreneurs, and we wanted to feature Madison Roberts and her innovative app StudySync. She mentioned you two are related and that you might have some insight into her development process. My blood ran cold. I felt like I was falling through space. I'm sorry, what did you say? Madison Roberts? She's the founder and CEO of StudySync Technologies. She's been getting a lot of buzz in the tech community lately. We're featuring her in our Women in Tech Spotlight series. I pulled up TechCrunch online with shaking hands, and there it was, a glowing profile of Madison, my Madison, presenting my app as her own creation. The photos showed her in a sleek office, which I later discovered was just a WeWork space she'd rented for the day, gesturing at whiteboards covered with MI algorithms, my user interface designs, my business model. The article described her as a self-taught coding prodigy who had revolutionized student networking through innovative AI applications. There were quotes about her vision for the future of education, and her plans to disrupt the traditional study model and make learning more accessible for everyone. She even had fake testimonials from beta users praising the app's effectiveness. One fake quote read, "StudySync helped me find the perfect study partner for my organic chemistry class. Madison's algorithm understood exactly what kind of learner I was and matched me with someone who complemented my study style perfectly." But here's where Madison made her first major mistake. She was still the same lazy, entitled person she'd always been. She'd stolen my work, but she didn't understand it. In the article, she made several technical claims that were completely wrong, used terminology incorrectly, and described features that didn't actually exist in the app. For example, she claimed that StudySync used quantum machine learning algorithms, which isn't even a real thing in the way she described it, and neuro-linguistic programming integration. Complete nonsense. She said the app could predict student GPA improvement with 97% accuracy, and automatically generate personalized study schedules based on circadian rhythm analysis. None of this was true. My actual app was sophisticated but grounded in real computer science and psychology research. Madison's description sounded like she'd thrown together buzzwords from tech blogs without understanding what any of it meant. I screenshot everything, saved the article, printed physical copies, and immediately called my lawyer. Then I started digging deeper into what Madison had been doing. It turns out Madison had been very busy. After stealing my laptop, she'd somehow accessed my files. I later realised she'd watch-typed my password multiple times during that visit. I used the name of our childhood dog combined with my birth year, which she obviously knew. She'd taken my code, my designs, my business plan, my user research, my financial projections, everything. But instead of trying to actually develop the app further or understand how it worked, she'd created an elaborate facade designed to fool investors and media without actually having a functioning product. She'd built a basic website with stolen screenshots from my actual working app. She'd created fake social media accounts for a development team that didn't exist, complete with LinkedIn profiles, Twitter accounts, and even fake GitHub repositories with copied code snippets. She'd even incorporated a company called StudySync Technologies LLC and applied for patents on my innovations. The girl who could barely pass high school algebra and had never written a line of code in her life was claiming to have developed complex AI algorithms that matched students based on learning psychology and behavioral patterns. But Madison's biggest mistake? She'd gotten greedy and started seeking serious investors. Using my stolen work as her portfolio, she'd been pitching to venture capital firms across Silicon Valley. She'd somehow managed to get meetings with some of the biggest names in tech investment, presenting herself as a wonderkind entrepreneur who'd built a revolutionary education platform from her dorm room. I reached out to every venture capital firm she'd contacted. As someone who'd been in the Seattle tech scene for years by then, I had connections and credibility. I presented them with my documentation, time-stamped source code going back to my sophomore year at MIT, university records showing my coursework and projects, copyright registrations, patent filings, even old emails discussing the app with professors and classmates. I had development logs showing the evolution of the app over 2 years, including failed experiments, bug fixes, and feature additions. I had video presentations I'd given at MIT showcasing early versions of the app. I had testimonials from actual users who could verify when and how they'd started using StudySync. The evidence was overwhelming. I had a complete developmental history showing how the app evolved from a simple matching algorithm to a sophisticated platform. Madison had stolen screenshots and buzzword-filled marketing materials that contradicted the actual functionality of the app. But I wasn't done. Not even close. I'd learned from the best. Madison herself had taught me how to be ruthless through years of psychological warfare. So I decided to give her a taste of her own medicine, but with the resources, intelligence, and connections she'd never possessed. First, I contacted every tech publication that had featured her story. I provided them with comprehensive evidence of the theft, including forensic analysis of the code showing my authorship, timestamps proving the chronology of development, and documentation from MIT verifying my work on the project. The articles were quietly retracted within 48 hours, but not before I'd archived everything. The damage to her credibility was immediate and severe. Tech journalists started talking among themselves about the Madison Roberts fraud case, and her name became toxic in media circles. Then I went after her fake company legally. I filed trademark infringement suits, copyright violations, and fraud claims. My lawyer, who specialized in intellectual property theft in the tech industry, was having a field day. Apparently, Madison had been incredibly sloppy about covering her tracks. She'd used my original incorporation documents as templates, barely changing the language. Some sections were copy-pasted word for word, including specific technical descriptions that could only have come from my original business plan. Her patent applications were essentially photocopies of my filed patents with her name substituted for mine. Most damaging of all, she'd kept copies of my stolen files on cloud storage accounts linked to her real email address. When we subpoenaed her records, we found not just my original work, but also Google searches she'd made trying to understand basic programming concepts and definitions of technical terms she'd used in interviews. But the real masterstroke came when I discovered she'd been taking money from investors. Madison had somehow convinced 3 different groups of small investors to give her a total of $150,000 in seed funding based on my stolen work. She'd created fake financial projections showing imaginary user growth and revenue streams. She'd even hired actors to pose as satisfied customers in video testimonials. This wasn't just intellectual property theft anymore. This was securities fraud, wire fraud, and investor fraud. The FBI's white-collar crime division was very interested in my story, especially when I provided them with evidence that Madison had used interstate commerce, bank transfers, email communications, etc., to commit her crimes. While the legal machinery was grinding away, I decided to get personal revenge too. I created a detailed blog post titled The Truth About Madison Roberts and StudySync, a case study in intellectual property theft, and posted it on Medium, my personal website, LinkedIn, and every relevant tech forum I could find. I included screenshots, code comparisons, timestamps, and a complete timeline of her deception. I was careful to stick to facts and documentation. I didn't need to embellish when the truth was damning enough. The response was immediate and brutal. The post went viral in tech circles within hours. Madison's fake LinkedIn profile, which claimed she was a serial entrepreneur and coding visionary, was flooded with comments from developers who could see through her technical nonsense. The WeWork space where she'd staged her photos confirmed they'd only rented to her for a single-day shoot. Her fake employee profiles were exposed as stock photos purchased from Shutterstock. Tech Twitter was ruthless. Developers started posting side-by-side comparisons of her claims versus actual technical reality. Someone created a Madison Roberts bullshit bingo card with squares for all her made-up buzzwords. A prominent tech YouTuber made a 20-minute video breaking down everything wrong with her supposed technical innovations, which got over 500,000 views. But Madison still thought she could brazen it out. She hired a crisis PR firm, using investor money, we later discovered, and went on the offensive. She claimed I was a jealous family member, trying to steal credit for her work. She even had the audacity to file a counter-lawsuit for defamation and tortious interference with business relationships. Her PR strategy was to paint herself as a victim of family jealousy and tech industry sexism. She gave interviews claiming that as a woman in tech, She was being unfairly targeted by competitors who couldn't accept her success. She said I was trying to destroy her dreams because I couldn't handle her being more successful than me. That's when I unleashed my secret weapon, my stepfather, Robert. See, Robert wasn't a bad guy. He'd just been blinded by love for my mother and his daughter's manipulations. But he was also a forensic accountant who specialized in financial fraud investigations for corporate clients. When I showed him the evidence, all of it, he was horrified. Robert had always suspected Madison was lazy and entitled, but he'd never imagined she was capable of this level of deception and criminality. Learning that his daughter had committed federal crimes using stolen work from his stepdaughter was his breaking point. I'll never forget the look on his face when I walked him through the evidence. He went through my documentation with the methodical precision of someone who'd spent his career following money trails and uncovering lies. When he finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "She's going to prison, isn't she?" Robert provided financial records showing Madison had no income, no technical education, and no background that could explain her supposed app development. He also revealed that she'd been using his credit cards to fund her fake lifestyle, racking up over $80,000 in debt for the office rental, fake marketing materials, crisis PR firm, lawyers, and her sudden wardrobe upgrade to tech CEO chic. Most damaging of all, Robert had been unknowingly funding her fraud. She'd convinced him to co-sign on a business loan, claiming she needed capital for server costs and development resources. In reality, she'd used the money to pay for fake testimonials, staged photo shoots, and the actors she'd hired to pose as her development team in video calls with investors. The defamation countersuit was dropped quickly once Madison's lawyers realized they were representing a federal fraud case, not a family dispute. In fact, her lawyers withdrew from the case entirely, apparently concerned about being associated with obvious criminal activity. But I still wasn't satisfied. Madison had tried to destroy my dreams and steal my future. She'd attempted to erase me from my own story and replace me with her fabricated version. She needed to understand there were consequences for that level of betrayal. I reached out to every investor she'd scammed and helped them coordinate a class action lawsuit. I contacted the patent office with evidence that her applications were based entirely on stolen work. I even reached out to the community college she'd briefly attended and discovered she'd been claiming MIT as her alma mater on her fake resume and in interviews. The house of cards collapsed spectacularly and publicly. Madison was arrested at the fake office space she'd been renting. She was there for another staged photo shoot for a podcast interview. The local news covered it. Seattle woman arrested in a $150K tech fraud scheme. Her mugshot was published online, and the story was picked up by national tech publications. She was charged with wire fraud, securities fraud, intellectual property theft, and mail fraud. The case made it onto a few true crime podcasts where hosts dissected her elaborate deception and interviewed some of the investors she'd scammed. But the most satisfying moment came during her sentencing hearing. The federal courthouse in Seattle was packed. I'd expected maybe a few people, the investors, some lawyers, maybe a reporter or two. Instead, the gallery was full of other entrepreneurs, developers, and students who'd been following the case. Some held signs reading, "Protect IP rights" and "Justice for Jessica." I was allowed to give a victim impact statement. I'd prepared for weeks, writing and rewriting what I wanted to say. When the moment came, I stood up in that courtroom and looked directly at Madison. This person who had tormented me for over a decade, who had tried to steal not just my work, but my entire identity. "Your Honor," I said, my voice stronger than I'd expected it to be, "the defendant didn't just steal my code or my business plan. She tried to steal my story. For years, she made me feel worthless, like I didn't matter, like my achievements weren't real. She wanted to erase me and replace me with her own fabricated version." I talked about the years of psychological abuse, the way she'd systematically tried to sabotage my education and career. I explained how her theft hadn't just been about money, but about identity and recognition. "She made one crucial mistake, though," I concluded. "She underestimated who I really am. She saw the scared, awkward teenager she used to torment and thought I'd be an easy target. But that girl grew up to be someone who fights back." Madison was sentenced to 30 months in federal prison and ordered to pay full restitution to the investors, plus $500,000 in damages to me. The judge noted that her elaborate deception and complete lack of remorse warranted the harsher end of the sentencing guidelines. Her mugshot was published online, permanently attached to her real name. Any future employer would find it with a simple Google search. Her social media accounts were suspended. Her crisis PR firm dropped her the day she was sentenced. My mother tried to guilt-trip me about destroying the family, but Robert shut that down immediately. He'd filed for divorce the day Madison was arrested, apparently having discovered years of financial deception beyond just this incident. My mother had been enabling Madison's lies and helping her hide debts, failed classes, and other problems from Robert. She's not the victim here, Robert told my mother during one particularly heated phone call that I overheard. She committed serious crimes against Jessica, against investors, against everyone who trusted her. This isn't about family loyalty, it's about justice. The real Study Sync, meanwhile, became a massive success. The publicity from exposing Madison's fraud actually helped investors and users love the story of the brilliant young woman who'd overcome family betrayal to build something revolutionary. Major universities started reaching out to implement Study Sync on their campuses. Within 6 months of Madison's sentencing, Study Sync had over 2 million users across 500 universities. We'd raised Series B funding of $15 million. I was invited to speak at conferences, featured in major publications, and recognized as one of the top 50 entrepreneurs under 30 by multiple business magazines. I hired a team of 50 people, including some incredibly talented developers who helped me expand Study Sync's capabilities. We added features for remote learning, integrated with major learning management systems, and developed specialized versions for high schools and graduate programs. Most importantly, I made sure to document everything about the company's growth and development. I never wanted to be vulnerable to theft again. Madison was released from prison last year after serving 24 months. She got early release for good behavior, though I heard from Robert that she'd actually been a difficult prisoner who'd tried to run several small scams on other inmates. She's now working at a call center in Portland, Oregon, and living with 2 roommates in a studio apartment. Her social media presence has been scrubbed clean, and she keeps a very low profile. I occasionally get updates through mutual acquaintances. Apparently, she tells people she's taking a break from the tech industry to focus on personal growth, rather than admitting she's a convicted felon banned from working in finance or technology. I don't feel guilty about what happened to her. She made her choices, and she faced the consequences, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. But here's the thing that Madison never understood. I didn't succeed despite her trying to tear me down. I succeeded because of it. Every cruel comment, every theft, every attempt to make me feel small only made me more determined to prove her wrong. She thought she was breaking me, but she was actually forging me into something stronger. The scared, awkward teenager who let Madison walk all over her is gone. In her place is a successful entrepreneur who knows her worth and won't let anyone take what's hers. Madison tried to strive to steal my life, but she only ended up destroying her own. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if she'd just asked for help instead of trying to steal from me. I might have actually helped her find her own path in tech, maybe even given her a job at my company. But narcissist's gonna narcissist, and Madison could never accept that someone she'd always seen as beneath her had accomplished something she couldn't. The final twist in this whole saga came 6 months ago. I got a LinkedIn message from Madison. She was asking, actually begging, for a job recommendation letter. Apparently, her criminal record was making it impossible to find decent work above minimum wage, and she thought maybe I'd be willing to help for the sake of our shared history. The message was pathetic. Hey Jess, I know we've had our differences, but I'm really struggling right now. I made some mistakes, but I've learned from them. Could you maybe write me a recommendation letter? Just something about my work ethic or reliability. I won't mention the tech stuff. I promise I've changed. I screenshot the message and saved it, then blocked her without responding. Some people never learn. I'm sharing this story not for revenge, that ship has sailed and landed spectacularly, but as a warning. Document everything, trust your instincts, and never let anyone make you feel like your achievements don't matter. There are people out there who will try to steal not just your work, but your entire identity. Don't let them. And Madison, if you're reading this, and I know you probably are, because you can't help yourself. I won. You lost. And unlike your stolen success, mine is real and permanent. Edit. Holy shit, this blew up. Thanks for all the awards and support. A few people have asked about the technical details of how I proved the code was mine. I used forensic software analysis that showed the development timeline, coding style patterns, and even metadata from the original files. The university also had records of my project submissions that predated Madison's claims by years. Edit 2. For those asking about my relationship with my mom, we're working on rebuilding it now that she's divorced from Robert and starting to understand how much damage Madison's manipulation caused. It's a slow process, but she's finally seeing the truth about what happened during those years. Edit 3. Someone asked if Madison ever apologized. Nope. Even during the sentencing hearing, she maintained that she was the real creator and I was lying. Some people are so deep in their own delusions they can't find their way out. Edit 4. Several people have asked about Study Sync's current status. We now have over 3 million users, partnerships with 800 plus universities, and we've expanded internationally. The company is valued at $120 million. We also launched Study Sync for Professionals, which helps working adults find mentors and study partners for professional development. TLDR, My toxic step-cousin stole my revolutionary app idea and tried to pass it off as her own to investors and the media. I systematically destroyed her scam with evidence, legal action, and the help of my forensic accountant's stepfather. She went to prison for fraud, I became a multi-millionaire entrepreneur, and karma is indeed a bitch. Update 1. It's been a few months since I posted this, and I thought I'd share what's happened since then. The post got way more attention than I expected. I've had journalists reach out wanting to write about the case, and I've been invited to speak at several conferences about intellectual property protection for young entrepreneurs. More importantly, I've heard from dozens of other people who've experienced similar theft and betrayal from family members or friends. One woman reached out to tell me that her sister had stolen her photography portfolio and was using it to get freelance jobs. Another entrepreneur contacted me about his business partner who tried to push him out of their startup and claims sole credit for their product. A graduate student shared that her roommate had submitted her thesis research under her own name. It's apparently way more common than I thought, especially in creative and tech fields where it's hard for outsiders to verify who really did the work. StudySync continues to grow exponentially. We recently launched StudySync Pro, which includes advanced AI tutoring features powered by natural language processing, and has been adopted by several major university systems, including Harvard, Stanford, and the entire University of California system. The company is now valued at over $120 million, and we're looking at international expansion. We've got offices in Seattle, Austin, and Boston, with plans to open in London and Toronto next year. I also started a non-profit called the Jessica Foundation that provides scholarships and legal support for first-generation college students studying computer science, specifically focusing on those who've overcome family adversity. It felt like the right way to turn my negative experiences into something positive for others. We've already helped 50 students with full scholarships and provided legal aid to 12 young entrepreneurs dealing with IP theft. There's something deeply satisfying about using my success to prevent others from going through what I experienced. As for Madison, well, let's just say karma isn't done with her yet. About 2 months after my original post, I got a call from the FBI's cybercrime division. Apparently, my case had helped them identify a pattern of similar frauds. Madison hadn't been working alone. She'd been part of a larger scheme involving multiple people stealing intellectual property from college students and young entrepreneurs. The investigation revealed that Madison had connected with this group through social media while she was pretending to be a tech entrepreneur. They'd been coaching her on how to steal and monetize other people's work, providing her with templates for fake business documents, and taking a 30% cut of any money she managed to raise from investors. The scheme was more sophisticated than I'd initially realized. They had a whole network of fake companies, shell corporations, and even paid influencers who would promote their fake startups on social media. Madison thought she was the mastermind, but she was actually just another victim being used by more sophisticated criminals. The irony was delicious. The girl who'd spent her whole life taking advantage of others had finally met people who were better at it than she was. The case has expanded into a federal racketeering investigation involving 23 defendants across 8 states. Madison is now a key witness against the ringleaders, which means her prison sentence might be reduced if she cooperates fully. I have mixed feelings about this. Part of me wants her to serve every day of her sentence, but another part of me recognizes that she was also being manipulated by people who saw her desperation and greed as an opportunity. My mother reached out recently too. She's been going to therapy to understand how she enabled Madison's behavior for so many years and wants to rebuild our relationship. It's hard, there's a lot of hurt and resentment to work through, but I'm cautiously optimistic that we can find our way back to each other. I see now how much I failed you, she said during our first therapy session together. I was so focused on making my marriage work that I ignored what was happening to my own daughter. I enabled Madison because it was easier than confronting the truth about her behavior. Robert has been an unexpected source of support through all of this. Even though he and my mom are divorced, he's maintained a relationship with me that's more father-like than anything I experienced with my actual father. He says that discovering the truth about Madison helped him understand how his own enabling behavior had contributed to the dysfunction in our family. He's also been invaluable as a business mentor. His expertise in financial fraud prevention has helped me build robust security measures into StudySync to protect both user data and our intellectual property. The biggest surprise came last week. I received a certified letter from Madison's attorney, not a legal threat, but an actual formal apology letter. In it, she admitted to everything, acknowledged the harm she'd caused, and expressed genuine remorse for her actions. I understand now that what I did wasn't just stealing your work, the letter read. I was trying to steal your identity, your accomplishments, your entire life. I was jealous of your intelligence and success, and instead of working to build my own achievements, I tried to take yours. I know this doesn't undo the damage, but I am truly sorry. I don't know if it's sincere or if her lawyer advised her to write it as part of her cooperation with the federal investigation. Honestly, I don't really care. The apology doesn't undo the years of abuse and theft, and it doesn't change the consequences of her choices. But it does feel like closure. I've built a life and a career that no one can steal from me now. I have real friends, genuine success, and the self-confidence that comes from knowing I earned everything I have through my own hard work and intelligence. Madison tried to erase me and replace me with her own fabricated version. Instead, she erased herself and gave me the motivation to become someone even stronger than I would have been otherwise. Sometimes the best revenge really is living well. And to anyone reading this who might be dealing with their own Madison, document everything, trust yourself, and never let anyone convince you that you're not worthy of the success you've earned. There are people who will try to tear you down, but they can only succeed if you let them. Fight back. You're worth it. Update 2. The documentary is happening. Netflix picked the rights to tell the story of StudySync and the Madison fraud case. They're calling it Stolen Code, the StudySync story, and it's set to premiere next fall. I'm serving as an executive producer to make sure they get the technical details right and focus on the broader issues of IP theft in the tech industry, rather than just sensationalizing family drama. We're also including stories from other victims of similar frauds. Part of the proceeds will go to the Jessica Foundation to help more students and entrepreneurs protect their work. Update 3. Someone in the comments asked about dating and relationships after everything that happened with Madison. I'll be honest. It was hard to trust people for a while. When you've been betrayed that thoroughly by someone who was supposed to be family, it makes you question everyone's motives. But I'm happy to report that I'm now engaged to an amazing guy named Marcus, who I met at a tech conference. He's a cybersecurity specialist, which means he actually understands and appreciates how sophisticated StudySync's architecture is. More importantly, he's genuinely kind and has never once made me feel like I need to downplay my success to make him comfortable. He was actually one of the experts who helped analyze the forensic evidence against Madison, which is how we met. Talk about finding love in unexpected places. Final edit. I just wanted to thank everyone again for the overwhelming support and for sharing your own stories. It's been both heartbreaking and inspiring to hear from so many people who've experienced similar betrayals. For those who've asked, yes, I am working on a book about this experience. It's tentatively titled, Coded: How I Reclaimed My Life from a Digital Thief, and will include more details about the technical and legal aspects of the case, as well as advice for protecting intellectual property in the digital age. I've also been contacted by several universities who want to use my case as a study in their business ethics and intellectual property law courses. If my story can help prevent even one other person from going through what I experienced, it will have been worth sharing. The scholarship fund I mentioned has raised over $500,000 so far and has already helped 85 students. If you're interested in contributing or know someone who might benefit, you can find more information on the Jessica Foundation website. One last thing. I know some people have criticized me for being too harsh on Madison or for destroying her life. To those people, I want to be clear. Madison destroyed her own life with her choices. I simply refuse to let her destroy mine. There's a difference between revenge and justice, between cruelty and consequences. I never sought to harm Madison out of spite. Everything I did was in service of protecting my work, my reputation, and my future. The fact that she faced severe consequences is the result of her own criminal behavior, not my vindictiveness. I sleep well at night, knowing that I stood up for myself and prevented Madison from victimizing others. That's not something I'll ever apologize for. Thanks for reading, Reddit. You've reminded me that there are still good people in the world who believe in justice and support those who refuse to be victims. Keep fighting the good fight.